welcome back to your Global 9 history class and your final lesson on the Holocaust unit. So far, we've taken a look at what the Holocaust was, the systematic killing of European Jews and others deemed inferior by the Nazis, and the context in which it took place, which was World War II. We followed along with Elie Wiesel's experience as a teenager in camps like Auschwitz and Birkenau, along with his book called Night. And we even took a look at the perpetrators by examining the results of the Milgram experiment and its conclusions on obedience and authority. So in effect, we tried to understand the experience of the victims of the Holocaust, as well as the psychology of the perpetrators. But there is a third group, neither perpetrators nor victims. These people are the bystanders, and by and large, they expressed either indifference or even collaboration with Nazi perpetrators. I think we're best served by Elie Wiesel's quote here. "We must always take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented." However, despite difficult logistics and very difficult circumstances and danger, many groups and individuals risked their lives to help people during the Holocaust. Some religious groups, whether it was Catholic or Protestant or Muslim, provided help or support for Jews already in hiding. Individuals like Raoul Wallenberg helped provide tens of thousands of documents for Jewish people living in Europe that provided them protection against deportation. Oskar Schindler, a German enamelware factory owner, provided jobs to over 1,000 people outside of the Krakow ghetto and ended up keeping them from being deported to the Auschwitz concentration camp. However, despite these heroic efforts, the vast majority of bystanders either remained neutral or, even worse, aided Nazi perpetrators in their quest to commit genocide against European Jews. So what does this all mean for us decades later? Why do we learn these stories? Well, unfortunately, we learn these stories because events like the Holocaust and genocide, or the systematic killings of entire groups of people, happened prior to the Holocaust, and they've happened since. Stories like the Armenian genocide from World War I, the Holocaust itself and during World War II, the Cambodian genocide of 1972, the Rwandan genocide of 1994, and the list goes on. All of these stories of genocide follow a predictable path. And this is where your knowledge of the past can provide you with a source of power. We are now going to take you through what historians recognize as the 10 stages of genocide. These stories are not linear. They might even happen concurrently with each other. Some of the stages might not happen at all, but some of the later stages, for the most part, are always dependent upon other stages happening earlier. So for instance, the act of rounding people up or killing them is often found in later stages, as it was in the Holocaust. So what are some of these stages? If we peel back the layers of these stories, where do they begin? What are the roots? The first stage is classification. All nations have categories that can distinguish people into an us versus them society. In this stage, look for leaders who are trying to exploit polarizing people by creating these divisions and avoiding any sort of universal identity that can bring people together. The second stage is symbolization. Look for the development of symbols being used to further distinguish people in addition to classification. This could mean highlighting differences in people's dress or colors, or even forcing certain groups of people to identify themselves via symbols. The third stage is discrimination. Look for a dominant group's use of law or political power to deny the rights of certain groups of people. Fourth stage is dehumanization. Look for a dominant group's use of language and symbols and other forms of propaganda to further promote hateful ideas towards a particular group of people. Most often this takes the form in equating certain groups of people with animals or vermin or insects or disease or even criminality. The fifth stage is organization. Genocides are always organized in some sort of fashion. Look for organizational structures like paramilitary militias or secret police who are actually doing the killing. Usually the state or the nation uses these forces to do the killing because they want to have the ability to deny responsibility. The sixth stage is polarization. Look for extremist groups that are trying to further create a wedge and divide people apart. In addition to targeting members of the targeted group, they may even go after moderates that are part of their group because they see them as a barrier to continue the killings. The seventh stage is preparation. The group's leaders are beginning to prepare for the systematic killing. They're planning it. And even at this stage, they're trying to hide what they're doing, usually by using euphemistic terms for what they're actually planning. Instead of killing or genocide, it's ethnic cleansing, or purification, or even counterterrorism. The eighth stage is persecution. Look for victims to be identified and separated because of their identity. Symbols may be used again to identify the victims. Death lists may be drawn up. Victims may be rounded up. Property may be confiscated. The ninth stage is extermination. This is when the killing begins. And this is, of course, where we get the term genocide. The 10th stage is denial. This denial lasts throughout the genocide as well as after the genocide is over. The perpetrators of the crime often destroy evidence, they intimidate witnesses, they block investigations, and they question the testimony of the victims themselves. What we have to understand about these stages is that there are ways to combat genocide in each and every single one of these stages. The problem is that by the time you get to the extermination stage, the killing is already happening. And to put a stop to that killing, it's going to require almost an international forceful response. But on the other side of the spectrum, in the initial stages, in that first or second stage, you can fight that. You can fight back against language that dehumanizes other people. You can fight back against discrimination, create inequities that put certain groups of people in a position of vulnerability. Not only can you fight back against this, but it's imperative that you do. With knowledge of the past comes power, and quite frankly, a responsibility to change the future. See you next time.